Hello, my name is Maurice Engler from Emerging Technologies, and I wish to talk to you about ANEMAN today, which is our audio network manager. And I will do it here in Hamburg by Digital Audio Service, where we have a little setup, and I will explain first of all what this setup is about. It would be a classic studio environment where we have a studio A, for example, and a studio B. And in these two studios, we have one happy, which is our audio network converter in the studio A, and another happy in the studio B. And we would have, which is now what we have here, a Pyramix as a digital audio workstation and a Pro Tools in my studio B as another digital audio workstation. In this case, they are both on PC, but it could be a Mac with Core Audio, as we have as your driver or co-audio driver in this environment. So the interest is that via AS67, we will connect our Pyramix to this happy and benefit from its input and output. It could be something else than Pyramix as well as instead of Pro Tools, it could be Nuendo or Cubase or Logic or whatever you want. But this device here has the inputs and the outputs from this happy. So that means that we could run sessions, for example, in this studio of 96 kilohertz and in this studio of 44.1. And ANEMAN, which you will see in a second, will help me, of course, to set up those connections, for example. But the next day I have a bigger session where I would need many more IOs, and I would actually need to have the IOs from my Studio B, from the happy from the Studio B. There I could say, actually, in ANEMAN, I would benefit from those inputs and outputs and hook them up into my Pyramix, as it's in the Studio A that the recording will happen. And we say we do it all in 44.1 or 48K or whatever it is. But now this one, if I want still to benefit from different IOs from this device, because I have some free, I can continue to work with my Pro Tools, but I would need to be in the same sample rate. So I can have different setups of devices with different sample rates in the same network. But as soon as I want to interconnect everything, it will then have to be the same sample rate. And I will show it to you on ANEMAN right now. First of all, we see that we have those four devices. So we have my Pyramix Asio there, my Pro Tools Asio there. Core Audio would be the same, just with an Apple symbol. And I have my two happies. First of all, I see the one with the clock is the PTP master. And if I leave my mouse on it, it will also give some information about what firmware it is, the status, the sample rate it's in, and so on and so on. So first of all, I will make connections in between those Pyramix and happy from my Studio A. So I just select, for example, those two guys, and dynamically on the right side, it will show me the ins and outputs of those two devices. If I select now all those devices, it will do it for all. So if I have several devices, I can scale, of course, the matrix depending on how I want to see things. And simply, where I move my mouse between different in and outputs, it will show different colors. If it's red, it's that I can't connect it. If it's green, it's that I connect it, or I can connect it. So now I will just, per 8 channels, select the ins and the outputs that I want to connect. So I will do it for the ins and for the outputs. There we go. I have now a few ins and outputs connectable. I click apply, and now I see that I connected 24 inputs and 8 outputs, as this string has now also been shown dynamically there with the numbers of in and outputs. If I open now, this is each time per 8 channel, if I open now the ASCBU here, I could also say, no, actually, I would like to remove those 3 first entrants or 3 first inputs, and I could now make something bizarre like this if I want to, or I can also say I would like to remove those guys and set all those outputs from my first signal, for example. I can make funny and bizarre things like this. And of course, it will be represented over here again. Now, as we said before, I would have those two different connections. So now I connect, or I select my Studio B, and here I make my connections in here, as we saw before, in the same way. And from my inputs as well, I can make it like this and like that. And I say apply changes, and it will make all those connections in here. This can be saved as a file so that I can recall those different connections if I have the same type of session, or rather of configuration. But now I can say also I want to clear all connections. Clear all connections. So this is dangerous because I could do it one by one, or I can do it per device also. But clear all collection makes it all over the network. So if I have a few dozen of devices, of course, it's a dangerous functionality. But now I select all of them, and I can now say that, for example, I can collapse a few of those individual inputs so I can see a little bit better what's happening there. And now I will, for example, take the inputs of my happy and connect them to my Pyramix. As before we said, it would be several connections from this happy to my Pyramix. I will connect it here, here, and there. And as I have more than 64, I have something like 128 inputs in my Pyramix. And on the Azure driver, I can do that as well. I apply changes, and I see now that I have all those connections from my happy A, 24 inputs, and other inputs from my happy B studio going in there as well. But I could still connect if some material is available. For example, I could disconnect this SPDIF inputs, but I could connect, or I could use those inputs now in my Pro Tools. So I can connect those two inputs in my Pro Tools, and I still have two available inputs that this time would have to be in the same sample rate. Now, how to organize this? If I zoom a little bit out here, I see on the right side, I just prepared earlier. It's very easy. It's those two buttons on the top, new logic zone, new sample rate zone. Logic zones is typically, I would like to define colors for my room A and for my room B. So it means that now I have my purple color, which is my room A, and my green room, or my green color, sorry, for my room B, and I can simply visually differentiate them. And on the right side, I have a sample rate zone, where this time, this would define with a king or queen by a device that I put there in the crown. And all the devices that are in here, in this zone, and I change the sample rate of the queen or the king, will then automatically change the sample rate of those devices. And last but not least, I can again save it and recall it. So it means it's a different type of session that I can recall whenever I want with the same devices. All what we've seen here with ANEMAN is actually free of charge. ANEMAN is free of charge. You can connect it to our own devices or to also other devices such as Direct Out, Genelec, and Neumann microphones, for example. Partners are growing. I mean, there are new ones. It will be a little plugin to download, and it will be available. There are others. I will propose that you have a look on the ANEMAN website, aneman.net. You can enroll on a newsletter, and you will see also there's a ANEMAN Enterprise. This is against a fee for a bigger installation with other features also about more control, about administrative rights, and so on. About the drivers, Core Audio and Azure driver. The Core Audio driver, the simple driver, is free of charge. We have an enhanced driver with higher sample rates, many more in and outputs, up to 128. The same for the Azure driver. This will run in conjunction with a Happy or a Horus on the network to be able to have a proper PTP as well. So all of those information are available on aneman.net.